Aisha Abid, and I welcome all of you to another exciting episode of Bridge Writers in Conversation. Today, we have with us Mr. Irfan Afzal, who is a writer, a poet, and an educationist. He is rising from Rawalpindi, Pakistan. He's also a freelance communicator and a creative practitioner. Currently, Irfan Afzal is working with Govt College, Rawalpindi as an assistant professor of English. He did his MA in English from the University of Punjab, while his MPhil is currently in progress. He has done his post-graduation in creative writing from the University of York, UK, as well as a number of online short courses, including one on life writing from the University of Oxford. So far, Irfan Afzal has published his writing in several international publishing forums, including The News, Aurora, the Internationalist Magazine, plus Anthology, UK. Right now, he has published his debut collection of poems, and it's called Lost and Found, which was published earlier this year. Good evening, Mr. Irfan. How are you doing?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me today for this session.
Mr. Irfan, I would like to begin with the very beginning. How did you find your way towards literature?
Well, initially I began my educational career as a student of science, and that also was not by choice, as it used to happen in the past, that such decisions were taken by parents. And my father one fine morning told me that I've been admitted to pre-medical in Govt College, so I started doing that. And then I went with the swim with the flow of water, and I did my graduation from Gordon College with the same combination of subjects, that is pre-medical botany and zoology. And after that, for a brief period of time, I started my practical career as a sales professional in pharmaceutical industry. And it was one fine morning that I came across an advertisement from Govt Gordon College announcing the admissions to MA English Literature, and I just stepped out of my office and applied and got admission, and then I quit my job and again became a student. And this is how my love affair with literature started.
All right, but what pushed you towards writing? At what age did it all begin?
As a matter of fact, I had been uh, communications and creative writing practitioner all my life. My initial career began with the news as a sub-editor and translator. And after that, I've been working in as a freelance communications practitioner, working on different projects. But that kind of creative writing was purely commercial, and it was not the kind of thing that we are going to talk about today. Uh, so that was purely commercial. And my imaginative writing journey, I would say, it started rather late, and it was a kind of a casual affair when I showed some of my translations of poetry to one of my friends, and the person advised me that I should take it seriously. And at that point of time, my stance was that I don't know the tricks of the trade. I do have the potential, which I felt that I had. And after that, I started my creative writing courses and number of courses, and then my formal education with the University of York, that was also distance learning. So I did that, and it gave me a kind of confidence to go ahead with this kind of thing that has produced or
That's very interesting. I read that you published a lot of publications on international forums. What are your publications mostly about?
well, I've been writing about basically these are extemporary reactions to whatever is happening around you. Some of those were during the course of those times of unrest when Pakistan was facing the challenge of militancy. and some of those led to articles. Also, I had been, since I've been associated with creative industry in some capacity, so uh, some of those writings were about marketing insights, marketing related issues, so that kind of thing. Yeah. Uh, Also, I had the opportunity to publish some of those poems, which are now featuring in this collection as well in foreign publications. So that's how it is.
We'd like to congratulate you on your debut poetry collection.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Can you tell us something about it?
Excuse me, sorry.
Can you tell me something about your debut collection, Lost and Found?
Yeah. Uh, this debut collection, as the title suggests, it features poems that I found and I've lost. And when I say poems, metaphorically speaking, it refers to not just poems, but also to people that I've lost and found. And those people happen to be the poems that I'm talking about in these in this collection, as a matter of fact. I would say that this is a collection which interestingly, wherein interestingly, poems and people and places they converge, and at times it becomes difficult to tell them apart. So when I'm saying I'm talking about a poem, it might be about a person, and when I say that this is about a person, it might be about a poem. So this is how it goes. So poems, you poems are like it's around, these are around you, points are around you. So you have to have the eyes and ears and senses and sensibilities to find those points and to collect those points, as a matter of fact. So and during the course of these few years during which I've written these poems, I've been collecting these poems, as a matter of fact. Some interesting incident, some interesting phase, something that happens to me, or some memories, some things from the past, and objects that they gave rise to poems, and that's how it's been happening.
All right, that's a very interesting way to put it. And can you please recite something out of your collection?
Well, I would recite an opening prose poem, which is Shirsa. Okay, Shirsa, as a matter of fact, is a lake in up in the north of Pakistan, and metaphorically speaking, again, Shirsa is not just a place; it's also a person, and it is not just a place and a person; it is also a poem. So when I say Shirsa, Shirsa is a poem, and it's a kind of a quest for that poem. It's kind of a quest for that person, and eventually I managed to find it somewhere. So I recite this poem. It's a prose poem. As you'll see that these poems are not in one form. There are four prose poems in this in collection. There are uh, rhyming poems as well. There are free verse poems as well. So I've I've not deliberately tried. In fact, it has come about in this collection that they're not all of the same sort. So I recite this poem as shows. What title, what name shall crown my poem, cover and contain her royal rhythm, her measured movement, her internal rhyme, her layered mystery, her eloquence, her depth? What apt metaphor, what trope, what myth from the aeons of time? I drift, free fall, ramble in cold winter nights, whisked through the city streets like an autumnal leaf, past the apparitions of artifice, only to return empty and bereft, lost in the labyrinth of meaner things, oblivious to the poem itself. And then the summer summons, to the north, and I, the poet pilgrim, compliant to the call, rush to the Mecca of mountaineers, never so sacred, never so holy to me, until the poem herself sanctified its stones and scream. There I go, rushing along the roar of the Indus, past falling cataracts, the burst of green and apricot, and the desert, and the valley where the rivers meet, and the resonance of a soulful silence, reminiscent of a white covenant, the kiss. And the morning next, after a draught of quiet cascading from the streams of stars, I start before the golden knock, the city still silent, still asleep. Farther and farther, surged across the plains by whiter winds, I reach that paradox of paradoxes, the heart within the heart, that strange sisterhood of silence and speech, the halcyon harmony, that vibrant stillness. Into her velvet lap I fall, surrender and resign, one with a sudden splash of beauty. My crumpled soul smoothens itself out. Nothing else remains, only my poem and my sanctified self, and her name, Shiosa, Shiosa, Shiosa.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
sharing it with us.
thank you very much.
Oh,
So,
beautiful. Um, as a teacher, how do you make literature and writing, as we say, exciting and interesting for your students?
well, I think many of our colleagues would appreciate this thing that as teachers and as students, we are facing a kind of a crisis right now. I mean, the quality of students that we're getting, it becomes increasingly challenging for us to be able to communicate with them, especially when it comes to poetry, which is a very difficult thing to teach because we have failed, as a matter of fact, to develop that poetic consciousness uh, in in our students. And um, on that count, I would say that it becomes very difficult as a teacher when you have to cope with this kind of thing, having to teach poetry, which is, I mean, more difficult than prose or than something that is more superficial. Uh, I think it's very difficult, but to be able to make it exciting, I think it teaching is a skill. I mean, it sometimes it so happens that a person who is very competent may not be uh, a very competent teacher as well. A person who is less competent might be a very inspiring teacher. So that also is a kind of a paradox that we're facing. And well, I just can say that I'm an ordinary teacher, but I do try to make it interesting for the students. Uh, That's how it is.
Do you think that the passion that people had for literature is gradually fading? Do you feel that about your students?
Yes, of course, it is tragically fading. In fact, the more commercial we are becoming and the more technologically driven that we are becoming, we are distancing ourselves from finer things like poetry, like literature, and it is very difficult. In fact, if you ask somebody who's associated with universities, I'm teaching in a college. I often come across people who say that we don't have good people who could teach literature. Why is it so? I mean, there are people who are more, I mean, tilted towards linguistics, but even in academia, this crisis is not now palpable. People do feel that there is a kind of a crisis. We don't have people who can teach literature, and they're not people who readily or happily or gaily go to opt for literature as a field of studies. I think the crisis is there. Yes.
Alright, so you have been attached to creative writing as well as teaching and literature. How do you think that as a writer, your writing has evolved over time?
Sorry, I couldn't get the last part of your question.
How do you think that your writing has evolved over time?
Yeah, I think it does evolve. In fact, I mean, you continue to learn, and it is not something that remains static. Your own knowledge increases, as they say that you never step into the same river twice. So things continue to change. You absorb different influences every day, and as Hemingway says that a page written is kind of a tip of the iceberg. All right, so that page which is visible to us in the form of a text is just the tip of the iceberg that is visible, but beneath that page, that written text, there's a whole lot of experience of a writer, whole lot of knowledge of that writer, and that knowledge, that experience, it continues to accumulate over a period of time. And as and when the more we gain in terms of experience, the more we get exposures during the course of our life, it does influence us, our writings as well. And also, as they say that the poetry, it's a kind of conversation. The poems are conversations. So when we write one poem, it draws something from something already. This is what Eliot says in tradition and individual talents. So whatever we are writing, it's part of that long tradition of literature that has already been produced. So we are conversing with the reader on one hand, and with those writers who have already produced those masterpieces. So this is how I think the journey of writer, it continues to shape and evolve over the period of time. Yes.
So, what advice do you think will be fruitful for all the young writers right now who are watching you and they're struggling with writing? What advice would you like to extend to them?
I think I myself am an amateur, so I don't think I'm very much qualified to extend an advice to somebody. But in terms of some suggestions, I would say that perhaps we need to, or anyone who is aspiring to be a writer needs to cultivate the writer. Okay, and there are ways to do that, and you have to start with very basic things, and repeatedly if you ask any writer, they would say it begins with reading. Read and read and read and read. All right, and as Shimasini says, what flows in comes out. The whatever you absorb as a reader, it comes out, it flows out on the paper. So the first advice is that you need to read, and make it a habit to read whatever you're writing. I mean, there are two ways. If you want to draw a picture of a tree, there are two ways to do it. You go and watch the tree, or you see how others are painting that tree. Okay? So you learn both ways. So the first thing is that you cultivate that habit of regular habit of reading. And when it comes to reading, it's not just pleasure reading that you need to do. You say that I will read a novel and fiction and fiction and fiction and fiction and lots of it, and it doesn't I mean really count in that respect. For to be able to cultivate that writer in you, need to read philosophy, you need to read history, you need to read psychology, and you need to read diverse things which accumulate like calcium in your bones, accumulate knowledge and wisdom in you. So that eventually leads to that uh, iceberg thing that we're talking about. Okay. Secondly, I think there are very basic things. I mean, I've read somewhere, I don't remember the name of the writer. These are the tips that I've read, and these are that you need to have a comfortable chair and a proper working table. All right, these are the basic things, and you need to have proper light on your table, and these are the things that really matter. of course. And then you also have to be very regular in terms of writing. I mean, if you fix a time slot for yourself, that this is the time when I'm going to write, let's say 2 hours a day, 1 hour a day, you should put your foot down even if you are a very busy person in your family or in your professional life. You have to dedicate that one full hour to writing. And even if you don't write during that 1 hour, you have to be there on the table, sit there, so that this message goes across to everyone that now is the time when that person is going to write and is doesn't compromise or she doesn't compromise on that. So you need a room of your own, metaphorically speaking, not just, I mean, you just not don't need a proper room, but metaphorically speaking, you need space for yourself as a writer to be able to write. Yes.
Right. Uh, the bridge has done this initiative where it connects writers all over the world. What do you think about this initiative, and how do you see it in the future?
I think it's a wonderful initiative. Anything that that breaks monopolies and creates more opportunities for people, it's wonderful. So in that respect, every writer, in fact, or every young writer should feel grateful to the bridge that they are providing such an exciting opportunity for people like myself to voice their views. I mean, nobody would bother to listen to me what I have to say on poetry, but still, I'm there. And I think as a writer, on the difference between what we experience here and what we see in the Western world, where writing as an industry is flourishing, the difference is that there we have communities of writers, and people find it very easy and convenient to connect to each other as writers and have exchanges, gain, learn from each other's experience. But here we do not have any philanthropic initiatives of that sort, support, academic support of that kind for budding writers to encourage them. And in this way, in this regard, I mean, the initiative that we are talking about, the bridge, is doing a wonderful job because it connects writers to writers, and it kind of creates virtual community, and it enables at some point of time uh, to learn, to enable us, to allow us to gain from experiences and uh, various things from other people across the world. So I think it's a great opportunity for us, and we should celebrate it. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your kind words. Um, the world is becoming digital every single day, more and more digital every single day. We cannot find writers very easily. It's very hard to connect writers around the world. So we started this initiative. As a writer yourself and as an educationist, what advice would you like to extend to the makers of the bridge so that we can do better?
I think you're on the right track. This is a great initiative, as I've already said. Um, and the more time you spend on this initiative, the initiative matures with the passage of time. You'll be able to get responses from across the world, as I've already seen that, and there have been responses from Nigeria and UK and Bangladesh. So people are flowing in, as a matter of fact. So I think this thing is going to mature into something bigger. Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Irfan, for your time. I'm
Thank
sure
you very
that
much.
our viewers have gained a lot of information from this interview. In the
Well,
end,
I hope so.
I would like to tell my viewers that the Bridge is an absolute platform which is connecting writers all over the world. There are a lot of challenges and a lot of competition competitions going on at the Bridge website. So please sign in to www.bridgethenations.com. And I'm going to see you in our next interview with a new guest. Thank you so much, Mr.